Welcome to War Thunder with Subdude. How y'all doing? Flying out with the Martin B26 Marauder in a regular dev server event. Now, I gotta say that this patch, with the planes that it actually has, some good, some not so good. Some have been anticipated for a long time, and some aren't there yet. The not there yet is the A10A late. And until it shows up in either later this weekend or, another dev stream, we're not going to be able to do anything with that. Now, I have flown the A10 early, which is just an A10 that has one little bit less, it carries two less AIM-9Ls. But beyond that, there really isn't that much of a difference. But the B26 Marauder is a plane that I have been looking forward to, and scumbags are even on the dev server. You got to really wonder about people like that. They have no couth. They are scumbags. And they probably fly like scumbags too. But there's two B26s. They're both the B model, and one's in the American tree, the other one is in the French tree. Weird bomb load on the American one, I have to admit. I haven't gotten the French one yet, so I don't know a whole lot about it. Martin B26, designed prior to the start of World War II, entered service during World War II, actually became one of the best planes in the world. Better bomb load than a B-25, faster than a B-25, able to survive. Two Pratt & Whitney R2800 engines, and the plane was built to do a job. Unfortunately, at the end of the war, the B-26 pretty much disappeared from the Air Force's inventory, or the Army Air Corps. By the time the U.S. Air Force was in place, the B-26 was gone. And they had renamed the A-26 to the B-26 to confuse matters. And once they had done that, well, you know how it is. They got all the way up until the Vietnam War with the B-26, the A-B-26, and then they just reverted it back to A-26. Bureaucrats, politicians, military geniuses. You gotta wonder. But the B-26 is a good plane. Am I interested in it for gameplay? Yeah. I mean, it didn't take me any time at all to spade this plane. And as you can see, even with one shot-out engine and otherwise fairly heavy damage, it's still able to fly and go home. and the scumbag will end up getting shot down, which is good. He deserves it. The A-10, though, I'm of two minds on that. I do want to see the A-10, but the A-10 still kind of bothers me because it is slow. I don't know how well the thermal shielding of the placement of the engines is going to be as far as in air realistic. The weapons loads, again, it's going to be something that I have to see before I can give you a good opinion of it. And that just means that it's probably going to end up being one of those planes that's going to be incredibly difficult to not master so much as spade and get all the pieces to it. All the different weaponry, all the different engine, airframe, wings, all the modules. And that's going to be because we're going to end up on maps that are just not worth flying on, especially with such a slow aircraft. Now, slow is a relative term. If we're dealing in World War II aircraft, it's pretty quick. If we're dealing in Korean War aircraft, it's okay, but not the best. If we're dealing in Vietnam area warfare, it's too slow. If we're dealing in post-Vietnam, we're dealing way too slow. And here's one of the problems with the B26. It is hard to slow down. And when I've got only one engine, it makes it even more difficult to slow down. So we're going to try a belly landing. Yeah, I'm not thrilled with this at all. And the belly landing is courtesy of the scumbag. But I repaired, so I'm not that worried about it. Now, if you're taking off with this aircraft, the best way is set the flaps prior to takeoff, prior to pushing your throttle up. Set the flaps for takeoff, close your canopy, and then hit the throttle. It takes off. It will fly itself pretty much off the ground if you point the nose up just a hut and at about 130 miles an hour. Once you clear the ground, lift the landing gear, wait until you're about 200 feet over the ground, and then you can lift your flaps to combat and then to fully raised. When you get this plane, it's going to be wanting you to get upgrades and keep the throttle firewalled most of the time because it'll be screaming at you, you gotta go faster, you're gonna fall out of the sky, increase throttle. Yeah. It's a good plane. And you're going to find that it's a lot of fun to fly. Now, one thing I will tell you, it is not a highly maneuverable aircraft. It's got some weight. And when you go to start throwing it around the sky, you're going to see it. It maneuvers like a pig. But most two-engine bombers do operate like pigs. You know, except for, I think, the Hamden. Hamden's about the only one that doesn't, and that's because it's so light. But you won't be running into the Hamden with this plane. Battle rating 4.3. Now let's talk about the Germans. The Germans are getting the Su-22 and the MiG-23 MLA, I think. I'll correct myself in the write-up afterwards if I'm wrong. But I'm looking forward to the Su-22. Thank you. The Su-22 will be a good plane to grind out top tier. I've still got the MiG-21 BIS SM whatever to grind out, and then I can get on to the MiG-23 MLA. I've also got to grind out the F4 F late. Not the early, the late. Yeah. It'll be an interesting next few months to see how far I can get. Especially seeing as how at the higher tiers, the matches need to be on the enduring confrontation maps, and there needs to be more enduring confrontation maps. Now, again, this is for air realistic at high tier. Rank 6, rank 7. I do not recommend it for rank 5 and below. Now, that's not to say that when you're dealing with heavy bombers, that wouldn't be an interesting match. You've got B-17s and Lancasters and PE-8s and Messerschmitt 264s and Heinkel 177s and B-24s and PD-4Ys. Big ol' four-engine aircraft. Well, those are a pain in the butt to land after you've dropped your bombs. Not to mention a bit on the expensive side if you just abandon your aircraft. So, probably your best bet would, if we get those aircraft, or if we get those maps, would also be to have certain matches where there are heavy bombers available in those larger maps. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but that's the way I would see it done. That way they can be up at high altitude and do their job properly. Strategic targets and all. And it would also give bombers like the B-25 and the B-26, plus other medium bombers, Heinkel 111, Tu-2, etc. They would give them a chance to actually perform their job properly at altitude that they're supposed to operate at, 15 to 25,000 feet, doing their bombing, and then be able to fly home and actually get down properly without driving their, having to go into a 20-degree dive just to get back to ground level. I don't know. It's not up to me. It's mostly up to Gaijin and the rest of y'all. Gaijin will listen if enough people say they want something. And it has to be played once it's given. Now, one of the problems we've currently got in the game is players who quit matches at high tier because they don't want to fly on an enduring confrontation map because they're not getting their instantaneous gratification of combat within 10 seconds of taking off. Yeah, we've got a lot of those in the game. I understand when you are, anxious to do what you think is good. But, come on. Start playing the game a little bit more realistic. If you want arcade battles, go play an arcade. It really is that simple. Now you can see I'm trying to do a little dogfight here, but man, this thing is heavy. This is not a dogfighter. And a Potez 631 really isn't that big of a deal, but if he's maneuvering, he's going to be able to outmaneuver me in a B26. So it's time to go back to the barn. Alright, this is Subdude signing off. Y'all have a pleasant today, a better tomorrow. We'll catch you in the sky in Air Realistic on the good maps. Thank you for the dev server, Gaijin. Wish we had a little bit more, but it is what it is. Take care, folks.